We're born into a very heteronormative world, right? So as a child, we're being told, hey, you're straight, you're attracted to men, and you are attracted to women. At what point during your lifetime did you realize that you were attracted to both men and women?
I didn't have any support system. I was faced with ridicule like back and forth. There was not even, my mom would constantly tell me like, you look like a girl going out and stuff, what's wrong with you? And I'm like...
Because most people would have gotten scared in that instance. And the Sri Lankan, or I guess the human mentality would be, it's either fight or fight. Right?
And you know what, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, maybe like it's not really physically hurting a queer person, a trans person, but you are letting that mentality fester, which really just trickles down into everything else around you. Mine was more like internalized and like my monologue going, oh my god, you're a lesbian, you're terrible.
They automatically assume just because you're bi, your pool of cheating seems to be a lot more bigger. So they automatically assume that, oh wait, he's gonna dump the girl, he's gonna cheat on her with the guy or something, have an affair.
I feel like bisexual and pansexual women get hit up for threesomes a lot more than bisexual men and pansexual men, and we gotta ask ourselves why that is. It's not because y'all wanna experiment, it's for the male gaze. Here from Office Invasion, and today for Pride Month I'm talking to some pretty amazing personalities. I've got Kyle and Saritha here.
Hi, my name is Kyle. I'm a professional tattoo artist. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a bisexual male.
Hi everyone, I'm Saritha. My pronouns are they, her. I'm a pansexual non-binary person and I'm a social media specialist at #Generation.
Thank you so much for coming here and joining us.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us.
So today we're going to be talking to you about the bisexual person and how their lives are, especially here in Sri Lanka and during this time and age. I'm just looking at Kyle's expression. This is a lot. Okay, so you've already identified yourself. Now, I just want to know, we're born into a very heteronormative world, right? So as a child, we're being told, hey, you're straight, you're attracted to men, and you are attracted to women. At what point during your lifetime did you realize that you were attracted to both men and women?
Growing up, because I was born and raised in Bahrain. I wasn't born and raised in Sri Lanka. I think it's towards like late middle school or something like that, where I didn't really notice anything different about being attracted to men and stuff like that. Just personally, because I was so young, I didn't have any of this type of conditionings, luckily. I thought it was normal. I genuinely thought it was normal, and the kids around me, like my friends and everything, just thought it was actually normal to just be like, yeah, if you like a girl, if you like a guy, it doesn't really matter whether what your gender is, as long as the most important thing growing up for us was like holding your ground. Until I moved over here, then I ended up going to school over here for like a year and a half, and hearing all these people talk about certain things like, oh, that's gay, that's this, like in a very derogatory term, and I'm like, oh shit, that's what I do. Right, okay, so that's not accepted here, great, okay, cool. And trying to navigate around it was really difficult, especially moving here is where I got most of the backlash and everything, because I remember getting bullied for it and stuff like that as well. Like I was really openly bisexual because I wasn't ashamed of who I was, and I remember getting thrown down staircases for it. Seniors would try to grope me and shit like that and everything. It was just bad. I remember it carried on to like even as I left school, but that was mostly because of I had like very androgynous features growing up and everything, and at the time you couldn't even tell my gender, and I flaunted it like crazy. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But yeah, that was my experience. Only I experienced discrimination after I came here, to be honest.
At what age did you come here?
I think I was like 13.
Okay.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, 2012.
And sorry, for you?
Cool. I mean, I just want to say, first of all, I think there's a big misconception that kids figure out attraction and sexual attraction only when they hit puberty and stuff, which is absolutely not true. Kids know more about their gender and who they like and who they're attracted to, even though they don't understand sexual attraction per se, they get it from a very young age. So I think like my first sexual awakening was definitely like Wonder Woman in the cartoons when I was a kid. And you know, in my mind, it was never like, oh, like I'm attracted to her. It was more like, oh my God, like I love this, you know, long-legged Amazonian woman, right? And then, you know, with sexual maturity, I was so convinced I was a lesbian, and because growing up in Sri Lanka means that's so taboo, and there's so much derogation about lesbians, and I saw that happen in like school environments, and just even the thought of being attracted to women, even though I knew that, was so like terrifying for me. I was like, oh no, there's something like really wrong with me, and I had to really grapple with that. And I was very convinced I was not attracted to men for the longest time. And then as I grew a little bit older, I was like, oh, I am attracted to men, but also women. I don't know what this means. So for the longest time, I just didn't deal with it. I just stuffed it back into like the back of my mind and just ignored it for a long time. But I think by the time I was like 19, 20, I was like, yeah, I don't think I can ignore this anymore. Like, this is just like who I am. And I had to come to terms with it. And over time, I think I also realized with the sort of exposure I received that, you know, people aren't just men or women, there's so much in between. I realized, you know what, pansexual better describes me. Like, I know that bisexual and pansexual technically mean the same thing, but people use it to mean different things, I think, because it's easier. Because like to me, it's like gender feels very fluid, and it's a very secondary thing for me to be attracted to. And I think I knew that since I was a kid. I just didn't have the language to articulate it.
Going back to your experiences, Kyle, as a child, and even you, Saritha, now to come out, if you actually came out, or if you just took it as like, oh, everyone around you kind of knew and you didn't have to officially come out. But how was your support system, especially through what you went through in school? How you were bullied? Did you have a support system?
No, I didn't have a support system. Very easily I can straight up say I didn't have a support system as soon as I moved over here for the first 2-3 years when I was in school and I dropped out, did my O-levels privately. I only had a support system on my first job because the first job that I had was working alongside Hash and Manga, who were running Push Skateboards, and it was a lesbian couple as well. So it felt like a nice home for me, like where they were very welcoming and everything. And I ended up meeting a lot more other people along the spectrum as well during those years. So it never really, like I had a support system much later, but up to that point, till I was like 17 or 16, can't really remember. I didn't have any support system. I was faced with ridicule like back and forth, like even my own mom, of course my mom was homophobic as hell for the longest time until like drilled it into her like, yeah, this is not right. For the longest time at that point, there was not even, my mom would constantly tell me like, you look like a girl going out and stuff, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't care, because I don't like putting myself down for anybody else. Like, I don't want to dumb myself down even visually or me as a person, because I should be proud of who I am as a person, and I should not try to block that light because you are uncomfortable by it and stuff like that. Or like it doesn't line up with yours. I'm not doing anything to affect you or to harm you. This is the way I live my life and what I want to do. Please respect that. And a lot of people had a hard time dealing with it because I had a lot of discrimination that I faced, mostly from strangers on the streets actually. Where I remember one of my instances, I think I was with an ex at the time, we were in the bus, and we were looking at this beggar's baby, and we were just saying, oh, it's really cute and everything. This man who's drunk as hell gets up, points a finger at my face, and was like, you're the reason this country's going down to Sinhala. And at the time, I did not know that much Sinhala, so it took a bit of while to process. After it clicked, I got up, pushed the guy, tried to beat him up and kick him out of the bus, yelled at the entire bus like, y'all are like, y'all just let it happen, and this is what's actually wrong with this place, where like there's a lot of bystander mentality going on. And another instance I remember is this when I was like 16. I was walking alongside Kohala on the side of the road, and I heard a group of people catcalling me, but it didn't sound like adults. And I turned to my right, and it's an entire school bus filled with middle schoolers, kids catcalling me. And I remember standing on the road and I called random people from the side. I was like, what's this? What the hell is this? And nobody had any answer. They just shrugged it off and walked away from it. And there were like a lot of instances that I faced, like people would try to get physical and stuff like that as well. So I didn't have a support system. I guess I was demanding that I had a support system because I had to stand my ground at a young age for a lot of reasons. So it's more like I didn't ask for it, but I end up attracting really good people who are really self-aware and understanding about it, and they themselves see the same views that I have, and I'm lucky to have them by my side to this day. So yeah.
I'm glad you have a support system now, and I can't imagine what you would have gone through. Even with that bus incident, because most people would have gotten scared in that instance, and the Sri Lankan, or I guess the human mentality would be, it's either flight or fight, right?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. The reason to give you an answer for that is because growing up, I was in a lot of intense situations and everything where like my response is now a default to fight. Like even over here and stuff like that, because growing up in the Middle East and everything, yeah, it's nice and Christian, but like you gotta hold your own against some Arabs. Arab kids, they really want to throw hands. They don't mess around when they fight. So my brain's been trained to like, when I'm faced with confrontation, there's no running. You deal with it. So it works out sometimes.
Hey, I'm glad you got a support system now, and Hash and Lanka could help you through it.
Oh, yeah,
you met a community of people.
Yeah, I'd have actually, thanks to them.
Saritha, what about you?
I mean, I didn't really have like a big coming out thing. I think my friends always knew.
Yeah.
Like I remember telling them, they're like, oh yeah, cool. Like we knew. I mean, it was about time. So it was never like a big thing. But I can't relate to this sort of experience, although I've definitely faced discrimination and really gross biphobic things said to me over the years once they realize my sexuality, open up to. So I have like my friends who are an incredible support system. So I think I'm very lucky in the sense that I just happened to be in an environment where that sort of thing was normalized and sensitized. And I'm acutely aware that not everyone is very lucky, especially when it comes to like bisexuality and pansexuality, because there's always this idea of like, oh, so like, does that mean you're gay? Or like, what does it mean? Like,
it's like pick one.
Yeah.
They always want you to pick one.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, so do you like men and women equally? Is it like 30-70? Like, I'm like, we're not trying to bake a cake here. Like, it's you're attracted to who you're attracted to.
You see the cake, we eat it.
Yeah, like it's really weird. And I'm very lucky I never used to face that from my own friends, which I know a lot of people do. But I did face a lot of that from strangers, especially straight men.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
I think in Sri Lanka, it's always the strangers that judge you the most.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
If your friends judge you, then you need better friends.
Yeah.
The strangers
Ditch them, get better friends.
That's for sure.
That's true. Now, talking about friends, now over the years, the allies for the LGBTQI community has grown. But what would you tell people like us, allies, on how to best support a friend or a family member that's finally coming to you and telling you, hey, I'm coming out, like, this is my sexuality? What would you have liked in your youth?
My advice to people is when a friend comes out to you, nothing changes. Understand that nothing changes about them. The way they've been with you, they've been the way they always are, the way they will be, nothing has changed because they've known this about themselves for the longest time. They're certain with their decision. So please don't ask, are you sure? Or what does this mean? Or where do we go from here? No, nothing changes.
That's actually a fantastic answer. Just my only addition there would be, so a lot of people in Sri Lanka might not be aware that they have friends who are actually bisexual or gay or lesbian or transgender because there's always the fear of coming out. And I know a lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize it until their friend comes out that, oh shit, I actually know someone who is, not cisgender or not heterosexual. So my advice is don't wait until your friend comes out to support the community. Start with yourself. Start with sort of coming to terms with certain homophobic or biphobic or transphobic ideas that you might have grown up with that you might still sort of ignore, because peer pressure and, the whole cultural ecosystem we're in that you just ignore because you think, oh, well, it's not, it's just words. They don't really hurt. But you never know who else is listening, and it might actually be your friend or your loved one who is actually listening. So that would be my advice. Don't wait until your friends come out. Start today, because to me, like, allyship is not an identity. Being an ally is not an identity. It's a conscious act active, things that you do every day to show support, to show solidarity, to show that, like, I got your back.
Yeah. Being a decent human being. I would like to add slightly to that. Being self-aware about we had to be very objective this where we stay in a culture and society where we do have homophobic slurs used casually amongst friends and everything. And I think we need to catch ourselves with that because, as she said, there could be a friend amongst you who is in the spectrum who will really not feel comfortable opening up if they hear whatever you're saying and stuff like that.
And you're supposed to be their support system if they do come out, right?
Exactly.
But they're not going to feel comfortable enough to do that if they think, oh, my friends think this way. Like, this is not a safe space anymore.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that. I was thinking, as a friend, you need to be a safe space to your friends, regardless of sexuality. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever they are, regardless of sexuality, regardless if they're good or bad human beings, murderers, maybe
Depends on the reason.
Yeah.
Intention matters.
Debatable, but yes.
Intention matters. Hey, a lot of people do good things for really shitty intentions.
But yeah, so as long as you're a safe space over there, and I think going off what Saritha says, I think a lot of us, like allies, when you say we have to consciously make sure that even our friends, if they pass any homophobic comments just in passing, like, the most popular one is like, oh, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
To just tell them, hey, that's not cool what you're doing, that's not a derogatory term. And that term is usually interchanged with, oh, don't be a woman, right? But so those are very interchangeable terms. And if you can stand up for one term, you can definitely stand up for the other term. And you can tell your friends not to do that. But most of the time what happens is people tend to be like, I could argue with you, or else I could just let it pass and my life can be easier for the next 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That tends to be it.
If you ever think that, because, like, very honestly, I've thought that, because I'm like, it doesn't affect me, and it's like, we're having a good time, like, I don't want to be, the buzzkill, but over the years, I've gotten very comfortable with being the feminist buzzkill. If you follow me on social media, like, I love being the feminist buzzkill, because it's the only way to be. But we call them microaggressions, like little things, and you let them pass because you think, well, this doesn't really hurt people. It's fine. Like, my life is easier if I don't argue this. There's such a level of privilege that comes from that because you're not personally hurt by it, sure. And you know what? In the grand scheme of things, maybe like it's not really physically hurting a queer person, a trans person, but you are letting that mentality fester, which really just trickles down into everything else around you. And especially if you are, like 18 and above and you're, a conscious, like an adult with an adult conscience, then you need to really think about what level of privilege it comes from that you can just not think about it. But gay and trans people don't get to do that. They don't get to be like, oh, well, this doesn't affect me. Because it does. It affects how we navigate the world. It affects, what spaces we're welcome in. It affects what opportunities we have access to. It affects all of that. So, if you ever, in passing, hear something and your first thought is, I heard it, but I'm going to ignore it. Maybe sit with the level of privilege that comes with to say that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, one more thing, like, stand up for your friends, but don't white knight that shit. Don't, like, try to speak for them as well. Like, stand up for them, but they're not dumb. They're human beings. They can speak for themselves too, Yeah.
Going off that now, over time, we've seen the world get more accepting of the LGBTIQ community, right? Sri Lanka, however, we have to still be playing catch up on it. There's still a lot of homophobia that's going around, that's rampant, that's normalized also to a certain extent. But within that homophobia, as bisexual people, there's also biphobia, right? And I think bi men face it more than bi women because, let's face it, lesbians, bi women, they're all fetishized, right?
Extremely
go online
fetishized,
to see adult movies about women, everyone loves it, everyone's like, oh my god, I can't wait to see two girls kiss, I can't wait to see this and that. But the moment you think of men, you're just like, that's not my cup of tea. So how have both your experiences differed? Because just listening to how York came out, like for her, seemed much more fine than for you, Kyle, right?
Like mine was more like internalized and like my monologue going, oh my god, you're a lesbian, you're terrible.
I deal with a lot. So as adults also, how have they been different?
When it comes to you want to go first?
No, please.
When it comes to the biphobia aspect of it, I still face it to this day. That's the
And I
thing,
will
like,
just say, like, a lot of it comes from within the LGBTIQ community.
Yeah.
Especially from older generations of gay men and lesbian women.
Yeah, because they're like the forefronts of like the
Yeah.
whole movement, right? So when you're bi or something, you have a lot more people, not just like people not in the spectrum, but them as well, saying like, pick one.
It's weird. It's like you constantly have to prove your sexuality by picking a side.
Exactly. And if you pick the
yeah.
opposite gender, if you go to like, you know, a hetero type relationship,
really
it's like,
unfortunate.
oh, okay, we knew it was a phase. No,
It's very unfortunate when it comes from your elders. Like, you're supposed to protect us and encourage us to be our authentic selves.
Oh,
Because
no,
they
but-
were the guides of the community.
Yeah.
Now they're gatekeeping.
Yes,
Gatekeep
they
it.
do.
Yes, of
Oh
course.
yeah, massively.
Yeah, there's a lot of gatekeeping within the LGBT community. That's why, again, personally speaking, like why I have personally removed myself from it. Like, yes, I'm still openly bisexual and I do support the LGBT community full on, but I don't see myself getting strongly involved in everything due to personal reasons of what I've experienced in these communities and groups over the years. The biphobia thing, where like I've had parents and families of my past partners, to this day even as well, do not feel comfortable by the aspect of me being bisexual or even being slightly androgynous to begin with, because they automatically assume just because you're bi, your pool of cheating seems to be a lot more bigger. So they automatically assume that, oh wait, he's gonna dump the girl, he's gonna cheat on her with the guy or something, have an affair. They're on, as you said before, promiscuous. Like it's that stigma of it that's just really, really frustrating and annoying. And I've seen a lot of my friends as well who come out as bisexual, who are women, get that accepted so much more easier. Guys, jump on that.
But that's the thing, right? Like, that acceptance isn't like, oh my god, like,
No, it's a pure fetishized acceptance.
Yeah, it's not acceptance.
Yeah.
It's like, aha, we can get her for a threesome.
Exactly. That's the first question. That's the first question to ask.
Right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, if you want to compare notes, I feel like bisexual and pansexual women get hit up for threesomes a lot more than bisexual men and pansexual men, and we gotta ask ourselves why that is. It's not because y'all want to experiment, it's for the male gaze. Bisexual and lesbian women exist for the male gaze because it doesn't make straight men gay if they still sleep with us. It's their masculinity, their straightness is intact.
Yes, straight dudes don't want to see two dicks, but they don't mind showering together.
But yeah, heterosexual women in relationships, if your man ever proposes a threesome, agree to it and say, yeah, I'm gonna find a nice bisexual boy for us. Do that.
Oh,
do
yeah.
that.
And then see how it goes.
And then see how it goes.
Yeah.
And
if they're down for it, fuck yeah.
Usually it's a hard pass.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah.
Even every straight man wants to be like, hey, even if their partner's straight, they're just like, what are your thoughts on a threesome?
Yeah.
Open it up.
The man's involved. I'm
Yeah.
fine
Like,
with it.
how dare you? That
Then
hurts
it's
my
like,
fragile
I'm not
ego.
gay, and I'm like, well, I didn't say you were.
Yeah.
You wanted a threesome, and they
Yeah, you don't know how to suck his dick. You don't do that. There's so many other things you can do.
But yeah, like, I think being a bisexual and like pansexual woman, like it, or like a femme presenting person, like I'm non-binary, but like, you know, very femme presenting, obviously. Like it is more accepting, like you said. Like I don't get told, oh well, you're just gay. It's the opposite of it. I get told, oh well, you're just like straight. Like you're just into women for fun, and I'm like.
There's this other aspect known as like the switch up over here when it comes to women who are coming out as bi and stuff like that. They're easily more accepted by like people who are not in the spectrum, but y'all face a lot of discrimination from folks within the community, a lot more than bi men does.
Especially with a lot of lesbian women. Like I've heard such gross like biphobic things from lesbian women. It's very unfortunate.
Do you want to share one?
Yeah, like sure. I mean, for one, like I get called a bad bisexual all the time because
how are you a bad bisexual?
Because I date men as well, right?
So what?
And now I'm in like a heterosexual relationship, right? And so that like automatically erases like my sexuality, and I'm like, would you like to see the amount of women me and my boyfriend check out together? Like, you have no idea. Okay, please stop. That doesn't stop you from actually, like, your attraction is who you're attracted to. It doesn't erase anything. But like I've had this with going to, actually when I was in the UK, for example, like going to gay clubs. Gay clubs are always like the safest place to be because like as a femme presenting person, like it's amazing because no one touches you, no one's creepy to you unless it's like the occasional drunk lesbian trying to like grope you, like which is gross.
Yeah,
but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But going into gay clubs, like you'd always be gatekept because you don't look gay enough.
That's what
So like you had to like consciously partner up with more like androgynous presenting like friends who are like females or women, right? You'd have to partner up with them so that it would look like you're a couple going into this club. Because otherwise, if you present, you know, not
just
very,
normally.
like, look at me, right? I don't present androgynous at all. I present very femme. So for me going into that club, I could get denied because I don't look gay enough.
Like that's. You, what does gay look like?
Oh, I have no idea.
Is there a thing where just like, okay, you need to be wearing these type of clothes, these type of brands, these type of shoes, your hair needs to be a certain way?
Like,
I
do
mean,
you see any gay on me? Like anyone looks at me? Depends on how I present myself. It depends because like over time I did come off as very androgynous and everything, so my features just put it out there for me. But as time I try to get in touch more with my masculine side and everything, the way that I dress, I actually started getting offended that people thought I was straight.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I get that because I'm non-binary as well. So I think it's difficult for people to grasp that I'm non-binary because but she has boobs. And I'm not like androgynous.
Yeah.
Right? And lesbians always assume that I'm a bottom because I look very femme. And I'm like, oh honey.
It's like, you're wrong.
You're so wrong. But cool, like we'll leave it at that. But no, I think a lot of that has to do with like like gender expression, how we express ourselves, how we dress, and that's unfortunate. Like part of, I think, pride and part of like having this month to celebrate all these identities is to also dismantle and break those sort of stereotypes and those little labels we have for us within a movement that's meant to be about celebrating diversity. Like that I just never understand why we need to fit into a box to be accepted.
No, exactly.
What you said right there, why you need to fit into a box? Because let's take the whole heterosexual LGBTQI bit, right? Because they say when you're not heterosexual, you're breaking the box. You have to be in the LGBTIQ.
You're in another
you have
box.
to fit into a specific box.
Because it's, I feel like personally as humans, we're based off, our monkey brains just want society and we find safety within groups rather than individuality and stuff like that. It's easier to follow in packs than actually lead and stuff like that. Hence you have very few people who are very unapologetically individualistic with themselves and hence becoming either influencers or like leaders, etc., where we don't have that type of mindset for a lot of people, where we're literally rehashing the same social structures that we've seen throughout history and time over and over again. We're just changing the furniture and the wallpaper, where we're not really realizing that yes, we think we're breaking free by saying like, oh, we're coming out and everything, but you're really just walking to another room. You're not leaving anything. And that's what's sad because they've structured it like that, where I felt uncomfortable being part of certain communities and everything, because if I didn't present myself the same way, if I didn't wear a uniform, then I'm not accepted for it. If I don't behave, I don't salute the same way or anything like that, or go about it, I'm not accepted for it. And I'm like, that's absolute bullshit. Like, it doesn't really have to matter that, where a lot of people find pride in being visually in that bracket rather than actually living that by example. Where I've seen a lot of, like, I know people in the spectrum in general for everybody, but it feels like another type of box, as you say, because as soon as you're in it, certain things are green lighted and certain things are whatnot as long as you wear the uniform and go about it, where you're not being held accountable for it. Because if you hold someone in the spectrum accountable, you're being homophobic, you're being this and that, even if you're a person within the spectrum of it. And I've seen that shit fly, like, it's happens way too often.
Just to tie into what you said about like the uniform and like fitting into boxes, I think that precisely that, right? Like we try to create like this whole like umbrella term for everyone who's not heterosexual or who's not like cis-normative, and then we try to fit into like compartmentalize that. Like if you are a lesbian, you know, you can't wear jewelry, you can't wear makeup, you have to fit like a specific archetype. And that's why I think biphobia exists, because we really confuse them. We're like, they wear makeup makeup and they're femme, they also like women. Like, we've never seen this before. Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is this creature? So that's what.
They're jealous of
yeah,
us.
but I think
To
that's
get the best of
They're mad.
Yeah,
They're mad.
but I think what really people miss is that gender and sexuality is so fluid, and historically that's been the case,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's also a level of comfort, right? Like when you say when you fit into a box, even when you
Mm.
come into the community and you fit into a box, when you say the way people look, if you're a lesbian, you tend to be a little more masculine. If you're a gay, you tend to be a little bit more femme. It's finding comfort.
Yeah. But that's still conformity,
Yes,
and I'm like,
it's
that really defeats the purpose,
That comes,
right?
that comes from anxiety.
But
I feel
yeah, I
like.
mean,
A
gender
lot of
and sexuality is so fluid, and it's historically been so. Like, I always think this, like, our ancient kings wore like all this bling and like makeup and dressed to the nines, right? But then, you know, it's only recently, in like recent past, that like for men wearing jewelry has become acceptable. Even now, men wearing makeup in Sri Lanka is like Ganula makeup, like like all that, right? Like, my brother paints his nails, and like the amount of judgmental looks he gets, right? Like, yeah, because it's like nail polish, like Ganula mine, Q-Tex gane, so that type of thing. And I'm like, well, it's ironic that like we've taken like homophobia, which is absolutely a colonial import, right?
Yeah.
It's like colonial import. We've taken that and we've been like, okay, this is our culture. Make it sanskruti, and like we dwell on that. And I'm like, well, your culture is actually not yours.
Yeah.
Like, it was put here to control you by the colonial overlords. But you know, go ahead, that's cool. But I think a lot of that, like how people are treated, also really depends on how we look and our gendered expression. Like you asked earlier, what does a gay person look like? And that's the thing. Like, there's no answer for it. But the moment you look a little bit different, you know, you look a little not conforming to like a gendered version of a man and a woman and what they fit. There you go.
Yeah, basically,
right?
you look a bit
like,
curved if you're not straight.
Yeah, there you go. And I think this pride, like, I would really like people to reflect on that. How much value and how much respect we afford a person based on the way they look.
Yeah. I personally feel like if for this pride, I would like a lot more people to look more internally to realize that, yeah, sure, it's nice to fit in. It's nice to find your niche and find a group of people.
And there's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
There's
nothing wrong with it, but understand, like, if it comes from a place of lack or anything like that, do try to look inwards and say, like, you know what? If you like something, don't stop yourself from it. If you want to wear makeup, if you want to wear certain things, you want to dress up a certain way, if you want to like someone in a certain way, don't stop yourself from that.
And this is the gayest month of the year, so.
Oh yeah.
No better time.
Be gay every year. Come on.
Alright, and I think that wraps it up over here, because I was going to ask you what pride means for you.
Oh.
They've already answered it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kyle and Saritha, for joining us over
Thank you for
here
having us.
and for being with us and actually teaching us a little bit more of how it is to be a bisexual person in a straight and in a LGBTQIQ community as well, because there's a lot of adversity and hardship that you face from both communities.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for educating us and for sharing your experiences. And I can't help but hope that, you know what, this interview will change someone's life.
Hopefully.
Even if it is to be a better ally, even if it is to find a good support system, or even if it is to come to terms with who you are as a person. I hope this helps someone out there.
Same here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Great.